Behold, the Xenoblade! Xenoblade Chronicles has become one of my favorite series from Nintendo and Monolith, and after many hours of gaming, I have finally cleared all the Xenoblade titles. With the Switch 2 out and presumably Monolith working on newer projects, I figured now would be as good as ever to rank the series from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion as a veteran of the series since Xenoblade 1 on the Wii, all the way up to 3 and X Definitive Edition on the Switch. These are not going to be full reviews, just what I liked and did not like about each game, and I'll try to avoid major spoilers for those who haven't played these games, but there might be some visual ones. Sorry about that. And if I say a name or place incorrectly, just know it was intentional. So with that out of the way, subscribe to the channel, and let's start on this quest. Z-Man, you got some splaining to do! Some history is needed for those not familiar with the Z-Man cinematic universe. I named Xenoblade Chronicles 3 my game of the year of 2022. It was Nintendo's tentpole release of that year after Tears of the Kingdom got delayed. And looking back, there was not a whole lot going on in 2022 game-wise. I was super excited for the game at the time, and I put a lot of my summer towards clearing 3, which I did. While I felt amazing on the game at the time, and I felt comfortable naming it my game of the year of that year, after 2022 came and went, I realized something was missing from 3, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I have to say, there is a lot of good in 3. On a pure gameplay basis, this might be the best in the franchise. 3 fixed some of the biggest complaints about past games by giving you a full party of 6 characters early on, and now you can switch characters mid-battle. This game fights a whole new dimension that the previous games didn't. No more praying to the gods that someone would topple the bad guy when they have break applied. Or worse, your healer like Charlotte failing to do their job before a monster sneezed on her and killed her. Wouldn't Charlotte and Donald Duck be perfect for each other? Being able to control healing, buffing, attacking, whatever by switching characters mid-battle made things so much easier and dynamic. Plus, healers got some much needed quality of life improvements to make them valuable. Oh, Signifier, my beloved. And there are so many classes and extra heroes to choose from that you'll have a lot of fun playing around to see what works. And the heroes you can find are a lot of fun and really interesting and do have fun stories to tell. You do want to see what those characters have going on, and it's fun doing their stories. Granted, it's hard to convey how much fun I am having with the gameplay by looking at the footage. This game is just a UI nightmare. Oh god, help me, it's like I'm trapped in my pre-calc class from college. In terms of characters, they finally figured out how to balance screen time between the main cast. There are 6 main characters: Noah, Uni, Lance, Tyon, Mio, and Senna. All of them get a fair amount of shine and development throughout the main campaign, and they have their own ascension quests that further develop them and are worth doing because they make you stronger in battle. That said, Senna definitely pulled the short end of the stick because her side quest deals with 2 of the most annoying side characters in the game. Can't win them all, I guess. And of course, you have a high level of art design, exploration, and amazing music that you come to expect from a Monolith game. So the gameplay, presentation, and open world are all fantastic, some of the best in gaming if I'm frank. So what is missing from 3? Personality! Here's just one issue of 3's blandness. Noah himself, the main hero, is a bland, boring little twink. Compared to his teammates that have easily defined personalities and go through development, Noah was meant to be the straight man for everybody to bounce off of. That should work in theory, but in practice did not land. He's just a generic hero who wants to bang his girlfriend, not kill people, and protect his friends. He does have his quirks and flaws, like his pacifist nature and his secretly selfish behavior. The problem is that, without wishing to spoil too much, all of his flaws get dumped onto another character, which highlights how uninteresting Noah was. Thankfully, Mio exists to make up for her whack-ass boyfriend. Some say that your hero is only as interesting as their villains. The bad guys in this game, the consoles, were more misses than hits. They are named after the alphabet, so there's a lot of characters to go through, and some get more attention than others. I do think characters like K, V, and D were a lot of fun, and N, M, and J got a fair amount of screen time. The other ones don't have much to do, or are just not interesting. 2 of the consoles who are near the top of the food chain honestly felt like an afterthought. In fact, one of the endgame bosses dies without any kind of cutscene. I thought it was a glitch at the time, like I defeated them in a way that skipped the cutscene, but nope, no death speech from one of the main bad guys for you. In a series that had a lot of fun and compelling villains in the past, the consoles had a legacy that they failed to live up to. And while I do give Monolith credit for balancing the main squad better, that also comes with pacing issues. Because you have to spend a certain amount of time focusing on each character, that means that the plot has to slow down for a bit while you deal with something like a friend Lance failed, Uni's trauma, or Senna learning that there's no more creatine. Not to say some of the moments aren't enjoyable or emotional, it just dragged on at times. For me personally, I can remember a good chunk of what happened in previous titles that I played years before 3, but I struggle to recall the events of 3. That's a sign that 3 did something wrong in the writing department. Beyond that, the themes of the game of war is bad and both sides are unaliving each other for reasons they don't know is hammered in with the subtlety of a fat dude getting explosive diarrhea after a binge of Golden Corral. Does Golden Corral even exist anymore? The environments are pretty generic and they aren't as varied as previous Xenoblade games, and as beautiful as the music in Xenoblade is, in 3 you only hear 3 tracks the whole time: the battle theme, the chain attack theme, and the pause menu theme. And I do not feel like cluttering my phone with Nintendo's whack-ass music app just to listen to the rest of the OST. Finally, 3 is a game that does not know when to end. The Xenoblade games make sure you get bang for your buck, and 3 took me over 75 hours to clear, and boy howdy did I feel that in the final chapter. By the time you get to chapter 11, there aren't too many revelations left. It's just a fetch quest that leads to a visually uninteresting final dungeon that could have been split into 3 different parts and still feel long. It all leads up to boss battles against the main trio of bad guys that really didn't have much screen time, so you're not really sure why you're angry at these guys. And all of that effort builds up to a letdown of a final scene with one of the most ridiculous photos of all time. If you know, you know, and I won't spoil it here. All I will say about that photo right now is that Monolith was really horny, and they really want to make one of their previous protagonists universally liked. Maybe I psyched myself out as I was expecting 3 to tie in the previous 2 games together more, so I won't judge it for what I wanted it to be, but I could still be let down. Despite my yapping, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a good game, maybe even a great one. The gameplay and art holds it up, and it is worth checking out for that alone. It's easily the most welcoming for newcomers, and in a weird way, it encourages you to check out the other games after you clear it. Think of 3 like a hot dog. I ain't ever made a hot dog I did not want to eat. Xenoblade 3 is just a raw, plain core hot dog. Meanwhile, the other games in the series have sauce, veggies, all the good stuff for a fulfilling dog. So take that metaphor as you will. This is Xenoblade 3, and this is, well, other better RPGs. My store did not have hot dog buns, so we're improvising, but I like burritos more. But no matter what, your boy, he can make a good wiener. You can tell I'm American because I compare JRPGs to hot dogs. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the capper to the epic launch year of the Nintendo Switch. As a result, there were a lot of young players whose introduction to Xenoblade was Xenoblade 2. Remember, back in 2017, at that point in time, one only had a limited release on the Wii and a very esoteric new 3DS port. And Xenoblade Chronicles X was cursed to the Wii U. Oh, Wii U. Everybody hates you but me. So this was the game to get a bunch of brave new Switch owners into Xenoblade and potentially JRPGs as a whole. 2 is definitely the most contested game in the series. For some, this is the absolute pinnacle of the series. For others, it's a frustrating embarrassment to Nintendo and JRPGs as a whole. My experience went from really loving the game at first to hating it to appreciating the strong points while being annoyed at a lot of the other points. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is a game that feels like there were 2 different teams working at it with no one to play it before they had to get out the door. And that is not far off from the truth. Monolith was working on Breath of the Wild alongside Xenoblade 2, so staff was spread thin. There were technical issues such as bugs and memory leaks that had to be patched. Outsourcing was used for the character designs with little input given. That's why there's so much variety in character designs. Some of them look really cool, others make you realize that some people just really need to crank their hog, or at the very least, pay a visit to the local soapland. Since 2 had such a rough development process, there are a lot of mechanics that might have been better implemented if there was more time to test things out. In practice, some aspects of 2 caused me to drink, so I'm going to vent here for a little bit. This is for my friend who thought like, oh, Z-Man, that's not actual booze, you're just faking it. No, this is real gin, tonic, and I'm drinking it at, 2 p.m. on a Sunday, because that's what Xenoblade Chronicles 2 does to you sometimes. That said, for a budget gin, remarkably smooth. For one, the UI is a mess. Finding things in the menu takes way longer than expected, especially in an RPG where a good chunk of your playtime is just spent fiddling around in the menu. Second, the map is awful. It's not layered, and if there is a marker, there's no indication of what floor you need to go to. There was one side mission in Uriah that took me forever to figure out because I did not know what floor to go to. 2 takes forever to get going both in gameplay and story. You don't get a full party until a few hours in, and the plot doesn't bother to get interesting until chapter 4 or so. So the first 5 or 6 hours of the game is just running around until the game decides to pick up the pace. And you can't even really grind until then because you need a full party to take some of the heat off of Rex, and get some extra blades to cover your bases. Field skills are far more time consuming than needed, as you have to make sure your active blades have the right skills to open a door or take a shit or something stupid. And there is nothing more agonizing than being just 1 point shy of a skill clear, because that just means you need to spend more time grinding your blades, which can add hours to an already long ass game. Let alone just making sure you have the right blades with the right field skills in the first place. And finally, the gacha mechanic is atrocious. The game tries to force the message that blades are important, bond with your blade, there might be some brothels with female blades in them, blah 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 blah. However, due to how the gacha mechanic is implemented, Xenoblade 2 encourages the worst kind of roll and release that goes against the themes of the game. You will spend hours rolling aux cores and praying you get a unique blade, or at least a 4-star to hold you over. Most of the time, you get utter crap that you immediately let go as they don't do anything for your party. Even the rare blades go from hilariously OP to making Marvel 2 roll look god tier. I still have no idea how I managed to roll Cosmos so early in on my playthrough of 2, but I am glad I did. The best thing I could say about 2's gacha system is that it forever turned me off to the genre, so I just cranked my hog to the hentai of Fate or Genshin characters instead of playing their whack-ass games. With all of that said, there is a lot of fun to be had in 2. When you unlock more useful blades and get a full party going, the combat really opens up. It is so much fun to do a bunch of blade combos, rack up hella orbs on an opponent, then watch them kerplode after a good chain attack. It does take time to set up, but that just makes the reward all that much more satisfying. My endgame team was Rex, Zeke, and Morag, mostly because I got some really powerful blades early on from Morag and Zeke, and Nia and Tora just could not catch up. And to be frank, I found Nia and especially Tora to be annoying. Yes, I do know that Poppy QT is super OP, but I am lazy and I do not feel like unlocking her for the sake of this video. My opinion on Nia has softened over the years after seeing what they do with her character in later titles. She just left a bad taste in my mouth. Didn't help that the blades I did get for Nia in my playthrough were fairly weak and she just, again, could not catch up with Rex, Zeke, or Morag. While on the topic of Rex, my opinion of him has changed as well. Some people love the guy, others hate him. For me personally, I thought that he was not interesting of a protagonist at first, and he does take up way too much screen time that could have been used to flesh out some of the other characters. But, much like Nia, I do think later games help realize Rex's character more, and I think that within the context of 2 and the character they needed to tell this story, Rex is probably the best character they could have realized. But mid-tier on the great RPG main character tier list. And I think his fit is absolutely silly, but that's just being petty. Then again, as you can plainly see, I am not really in a position to be judging people on their fits. The plot, much like the gameplay itself, is a mixed bag. There were 2 writers for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, fittingly enough, and it shows. The first 4 chapters are just putting cards on the table, then chapter 5 is when the pace picks up. Then it bounces back and forth between the plot advancing and what could be described as anime filler. By the time you unlock the secret character and get this fit for Rex, that's near the end of the game. Thankfully, when you get to that point, the pace really picks up and it all leads towards a very satisfying conclusion, even though Rex has to wear that god-awful outfit for the rest of the game. Even Ludo with his cum sword would be like, dude, after this we are taking your ass to Coles. It does take a long time to get to that ending, but when you get there, it leaves you with a good feeling. Like you just saw a boy realize his potential and become a true man. Those emotional chapters hit right in the gut, and they make you want to see what the next obstacle is and how the heroes overcome it. Yeah, there are a lot of high and low points on the way to that ending, but the high points make the experience all worthwhile. Remember, it's about the journey, not the destination, even though those low points are still causing damage to my liver nearly a decade later. I feel like I was more critical of this title than I intended. I do like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It is not my favorite of the series, but I do like the game. There is one big reason why I prefer 2 over 3. I actually remembered what happened in 2. I couldn't give you the finer details, but off the top of my head, I could at least tell you who the bad guys were and why everybody joined the adventure in the first place. I played 3 much more recently, and I blanked out what happened in the game because most of that game did not stick with me. The point is, if I remember the good points and bad points of a game nearly a decade after playing it, versus a game that's only 3 years old and I can't remember a single freaking thing, that older title is better in my eyes. And that's why I think 2 is a better title than 3. It's an inconsistent title for sure, but the high points trump the low points in my opinion. With all of that in mind, 2 is a title that is not for everyone. Here is my advice. If you played Xenoblade 1, 3, or X and you like them, then check out 2. If you did not like any of those titles, then there is no reality where you would like 2. I know a few people whose favorite game in the series is 2, and that is totally valid. Again, it's an inconsistent experience, but it is one that does stick with you. There is a reason why 2 is so many people's favorite Xenoblade game. You always remember your first time. I'd rather not remember mine. What happens when you condense Xenoblade Chronicles 2 down to its best points? You get Torna. What was supposed to be a tale told in the main campaign of 2 ended up expanding into its, well, own expansion. Torna expands the lore of 2 by focusing on the Aegis War that happened 500 years prior to the events of 2, and giving certain figures more of a spotlight. You play as Laura, a woman on the run after awakening the Blade Jinn. Not this Jinn. As they try to find Laura's estranged mother, they are eventually joined by Torna Prince Adam, not that one, who pilots Mithra, and Emperor Hugo, with a lovely Bridget and whack-ass Aegeon. Seriously, someone at Monolith must have it out for the dude because he was low tier in Xenoblade 2, and he is still low tier in Torna. Since Torna was built off the back of 2, it basically has the same exact gameplay as that title. With that said, it improves on virtually every issue everybody had with Xenoblade 2. It really does feel like someone went through every complaint people had on Twitter and just went, "Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it! Fix it, fix it, fix it!" And they did. For one, field skills got reworked, so you aren't stuck fiddling around in the menu to make sure you have just the right blade for that one specific skill. The main characters are well-rounded and likable in their own ways. Granted, Jin and Malos are the stars of the show, but everyone does get a fair amount of spotlight as opposed to 2's uneven plot importance, and Tora's existence in general. And if you weren't too hot on Mithra from 2, besides just cranking your hog to the endless amounts of smut of her, Torna knocks her down a few pegs and makes her a more flawed but well-rounded character. I know she knows what pegging is. And you would be forgiven for thinking that Adam and Mithra were fucking, but as it turns out, that is not the case. Another point in Torna's favor is that the voice acting is much more consistent thanks to better voice direction. And in general, the combat is much smoother, with more options for combos. And because you have a smaller roster of characters to work with, it makes it easier to play around and find all the game-breaking strats instead of balancing a handful of blades that you manage to roll. And thank the Lord the gacha mechanic is gone. All of this sounds like a winning formula, but there is one admittedly huge flaw with Torna. Early on, you're introduced to the community mechanic, which gets bigger the more side quests you complete. It sounds fine, there's a lot of side quests to do, but you don't have to do them normally. However, at a few points throughout the main campaign, you cannot advance until you build up the community. So guess what that means? Padding. And it's not like the side quests in this game are particularly fun. Most of the time you're just collecting stuff or defeating a certain amount of monsters. It really does feel like Monolith was afraid that people were going to complain about a Xenoblade game not being 80 hours long. So they threw this in here to take what would have been a, 12, 15 hour experience into a nearly 30-hour game. The community mechanic being necessary to clear Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is like you being 3 pages short for your graduation thesis, so you add in tangents just to meet the page goal. Again, not speaking from experience, but is it normal to have nightmares about college 10 years after you graduated? Remember, optional content is not optional if I have to do it to advance the story. And to the game's credit, it is not terribly hard to complete most of the side quests, and they usually avoid the "one more thing" kind of side quests that the base game of 2 had. With all that said, the community feature really does drag Torna out. I think if this game chose to be a simple 12 or 15 hour experience, it actually would have made it stand out more. I am revisiting this game after clearing 1, 2, 3, and playing X again on the Switch, and all of those games can feel really bloated at times. While I do think the community section is a big flaw of Torna, the condensed nature of Torna means that there's a stronger concentration of good without the annoying aspects that held back 2 and 3. The simple fact that a Monolith DLC gave me more content than most standard AAA games these days is a point to how consistent Monolith has become as a developer. So overall, I did enjoy my time with the game, even with that one big flaw. I do think Torna works better if you had cleared 2 first, but it works the other way around. Monolith thinks that the best way to play this game is to play 2 until Chapter 7, then play Torna, then finish 2. I did not do it in that order, so try and let me know in the comments. For the record, I do enjoy 2 and 3, I think they're good titles, but there is a pretty big jump in quality between 3, 2, and Torna. With that said, there's also a pretty big jump in quality between Torna and our next title, so let's get into that. Were you one of those people who was not satisfied with the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Well, Monolith has an apology letter for you with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed, a nice little 15-hour adventure set 1,000 years before the events of 3, that manages to tie the quote-unquote Claw saga together like a pleasant she-body session. Two heroes, the very British Matthew Van Damme and the mysterious A, have to venture out into the world of Ionius to find Matthew's sister, Niall, as well as free people from the Flame Clocks and kick those Mobius wankas right in the bollocks. Along the way, the two joined forces with an older and wiser yet still twink Shulk and an older and much buffer Rex, and their kids Nicole and Glimmer. Now, normally when you make a spin-off to a game, there's usually some compromises. Yes, the game is shorter, it does not have as many lands to explore or quests to complete. At the same time, without the fluff, it's just Xenoblade 3 boiled down to its best points. The combat is just as fun, if not more so than the base game of 3. The world is big enough to get lost in, but not big enough to feel like it's padded out. The music and voice acting are top-notch.
Yeah, well, apart from Gramp sticking to me like glue. But I supported myself.
That explains it then. The way you think of her. As being somehow different from you.
And thank the Lord the community aspect is gone out the window. I thought that the gameplay of 3 hard carried that title more so than the characters or presentation, so just having more of that while ignoring the pacing and dry writing of the base game is a good thing. The characters are a lot of fun. Monolith must have got the hint that the himbos are their most popular characters and said, screw it, that's our hero. The main character Matthew gives off total I'll bash you fucking head in, Asura Minan vibes. He bounces off the other characters extremely well, especially with A. So what do you think, Matthew and A? They fuggin' or what? And it's great to see Rex and Shulk again after their games concluded. It can be inferred that things in their respective worlds did not go so well if they are back in the saddle for a new adventure without their friends or butt buddies around. It's fun to see them bumble around and try to be parents to their kids, but their interactions give off a different vibe. What do you think? Are Shulk and Rex fucking or what? I would not put it past Rex. And their kids, Glimmer and Nicole, go through a good amount of growth and honestly could have headlined a bigger title than Future Redeemed. As an aside, Monolith, not all of your protagonists need to be related to someone else. While it's spelt out whose dick Nicole and Glimmer shot out of, it's also obvious who came from Matthew later down the line. It's like they want to make a family tree crazy enough to rival the Joestars. Then again, they are not the Rise of Skywalker breaking its spine to connect Rey to Palpatine. I really should just get over the Rise of Skywalker because it's been over 5 years since that movie came out, but damn it, the movie sucked so bad. Ryan Gosling, the fate of Star Wars is in your hands, and Godspeed, my friend, Godspeed. For a long-running series like Xenoblade, each game does do a good job of standing on their own while having just enough callbacks and references to other games that don't alienate people who haven't wasted like 300 hours of their lives on these titles. Like I have. While I do enjoy the writing and plot more than the base game of 3, it does benefit the player to play the other 3 games in the series before Future Redeemed. I can't imagine someone playing Future Redeemed for the first time and fully understanding why Rex and Shulk are such a big deal, or why the colony has such importance to Shulk, or anything about A's situation for that matter. Matthew does act like an audience surrogate, which helps things out. Even then, that only does so much, as the ending hits and has some deep cut to the Xeno franchise that no one saw coming. We're talking games that kinda go beyond the scope of this video, that's how deep the references are. I don't think the plot is necessarily a weak point, it just makes it so the game with arguably the best plot and most accessible gameplay is being pulled to the other side with a plot that is really only for hardcore fans of the Xenoblade games. Again, as a fan of the series, I got a lot out of Future Redeemed. Will that be the case for others? Hard to say. Future Redeemed is a weird title. It really does boil down the series to its best points into a compact 15-hour ride that leaves you satisfied. At the same time, there are so many callbacks to the other core games in the series that it can make it confusing for those who haven't touched a Xenoblade game before. That leaves Future Redeemed as both the best starting point and the worst starting point of the series. I still say check it out if you haven't played a Xenoblade game before. If nothing else, it's such a short title that you can decide if the series is for you. For me, as a longtime Xenoblade Chronicles fan, I had a fantastic time with Future Redeemed, and I can say it ends the Klaus saga on a good note. And a game that didn't take 80 hours to beat. Oh man, that Jen is putting in some work. This game did not have an easy time getting an American release. Nintendo of America did not care for the game for one reason or another, and it took the effort of Operation Rainfall to get it stateside. Nintendo then acquiesced, but gave Xenoblade an exclusivity deal to GameStop of all people, which led to limited stock and greatly inflated prices. Fun fact, those jerk-offs used to crack open new copies of the game and call them used. I am so glad that GameStop is in the toilet now. Thankfully, after Shulk's debut in Smash 4, a Wii print, and a new 3DS port, and a full-blown remake, Xenoblade 1 broke out of its cult classic status and became a full-blown classic in the RPG genre. I played it at my friend's Wii U when I studied abroad in Kyoto, and I loved it. And after revisiting the Switch port, I still love it. What Xenoblade 1 gets right is the scope. Games during that generation were huge, don't get me wrong. This title utterly dwarfed anything that I had played up until that point. It's a true epic in terms of scope, something comparable to Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones for how massive this world is. Each area on the Bionis or Mykonos is truly alive, with unique flora and fauna. You could just marinate in one spot and admire the world that Monolith created while vibing out to the amazing soundtrack. As someone who played 1 first, it left an impression. Plus, you get rewarded with experience and goodies for exploring, so it's always in your best interest to see all the nooks and crannies of the world. Do people still say nooks and crannies? While exploring the world is fun, this game also gives you purpose in exploring with the story. It starts off on the right foot. Your village is attacked by the evil robots, they kill your bitch, spoiler alert, and you are off on a quest for revenge. That is as good a motivation as anything. But then you keep going and learn the motivations of the characters, how the world works, and even how it was created. All the elements coalesce to make a story that is both grand in scale, but personal. Admittedly, the old JRPG meme applies to Xenoblade 1, but damn it, it's done well here. Plus, the characters are memorable. Shulk starts out as a weedy little twink, but grows into a compassionate, determined, and strong young man. The chemistry between Shulk, Dunban, Ricky, Milia... Does it count as a spoiler if Shulk's final smash spoils it? And everybody's favorite himbo, Rain, is so well written.
Ryan, Shulk, I don't know if I can do it.
What?
Leave it to me.
Ryan!
Oh yeah. Ryan! Right time, baby.
Everybody has their own motivation for joining the party, yet so devoted to each other, and they avoid cliches like infighting or the breakup. I hate those scenes in movies so much. Looking at you, Rise of Skywalker, with your anxiety-inducing arguing. And that is the second Rise of Skywalker reference I made in this video. I really need to lay off the chin. That said, Charlotte is just kinda there. She hangs around to let everybody know that she's still a character. You can give her a skimpy outfit and have her run towards the camera. Whoa. At least she's better than her brother Juju, whose only accomplishments in life are getting kidnapped and using rainbow slugs to fix up a colony. Neat! While I praise the open world, plot, music, voice acting, and art direction, the fighting in Xenoblade 1 is just, good. It's basically an evolved form of Final Fantasy XII's gameplay, which is not a bad thing. Going back to 1 after playing the other titles in the series makes me appreciate how comparatively uncluttered 1 is. That said, the combat in this title is not the main reason that keeps me going. I will fight a fool if I need to, but I am rarely going to go out of my way to bash someone's head in Xenoblade. You can only use 3 characters at any given time, and more than likely your main team is going to be stuck as Shulk, Dunban, and the human perfection known as Ryan. Only really swapping out for special fights. And no matter what, I never found Charlotte's healing status to be useful. The fact that she's a total low-tier character and has little to do with the main plot is a sign of sexism among Monolith. When you get more arts and unlock more of the character skill tree, that's when things open up greatly. But until then, the combat is just fine. And that's where my favorite part of Definitive Edition comes in, the casual mode. At any point you can change the difficulty and play the game on easy mode. I know some of you are clutching your pearls out there being like, "Oh no, he's playing a game on easy, what a casual, oh the horror." I like the battles, but you get into a lot of fights when you're trying to progress. To me, the fighting was just something you had to do in between the fun things like the story and exploring. By getting through the fights faster, it just makes it that much easier to get to the good stuff. And there is a lot of good stuff in 1. The art, the music, the voice acting, the plot, all of it coalesces so perfectly into what I think is one of the best JRPGs of all time, as well as one of Nintendo's best games period. A must play for any RPG fan, or just gamers in general. I also asked on my community tab page, which is your favorite Xenoblade game? And to my surprise, Xenoblade 1 was the victor by a pretty big margin. I'm not sure if these people got in with the Wii version, or the 3DS version, or the Nintendo Switch version. Regardless, I'm glad people played it and enjoyed it. That was my first game, and I really did enjoy it. But it's not my favorite game in the series, so what's my number 1? Well, let's check it out. How do you top an already amazing game? By making the next one even better. I always felt like in the Xenoblade Chronicles discourse that X got the short end of the stick for the longest time. Being stuck in Wii U jail for nearly a decade will do that to you. Somewhere at my parents' house, I have the collector set for the Wii U that came with that cool looking flash drive that could corrupt networks. I think Monolith made the right call to do something different for the next Xenoblade game, instead of going straight into a direct sequel to 1. X is a pure sci-fi space drama in similar categories as Mass Effect or Titan AE, a movie that bombed so bad it killed the studio and put Don Bluth into retirement. How could a movie flop when you have Creed's Higher blasting in the trailer? X is really like those stories, with an alien war breaking out in front of Earth and the humans banding together to board the ship, the White Whale, in search of a new home. Imagine the human race banding together in the face of a great threat. That's how I know this game is truly fiction. And the humans find that home on the planet Mira, not that one, though that would be cool. You make a character and you're off to explore the planet, learn about coexistence, and lose your life to Eldritch abominations that man cannot comprehend. My opinion on X is that the story itself isn't terribly interesting. It's a straightforward sci-fi survival plot with a lot of characters and alien races to balance out. Not to say that there are no twists and turns in the main campaign, and some moments that will leave you with some absolute nightmares. Remember, don't let that bitch shower. I think having the player character be a custom character rather than a fixed hero kneecap the story potential of X. There's still enough of a story to keep you going, and trying to be vague, the ending raises more questions than answers. And that's not getting into the new ending from Definitive Edition, which is what happens when you give your lead writer a copy of Junji Ito's Remina. X is the kind of RPG where the lore and world drive you forward. Mira is a planet that is truly alive in a metaphorical as well as literal sense. Even more than the first title, Mira's environment is worth the price of admission alone. Monolith went above and beyond to create a world that is actually alien. Plus the little references are a bonus. I did not realize that they named the sandworm enemy Atreides. Since you are rewarded for exploring, you don't mind taking on as many side quests as possible, as you want to do them just to see what awe and terror is out there in Mira. And what puts X above the other games in the series, for me at least, is that X has the best combat in the series, and it's not even close. You have so many classes and weapon types to use in X. Do you want to go for a knife and a Gatling gun? Do you want to shield up with some dual guns? Or bust out the big freaking Odachi to cut fools, and use a ray gun to blast foes away? And that's not getting into the amount of heroes you can recruit to help you take on the hostile land of Mira. The possibilities are truly endless. I have cleared this game twice on the Wii U, and I'm still fighting game-breaking combos. Then there's the real stars of the show, the skill. Look, I dig giant robots, you dig giant robots, chicks dig giant robots. It's just a fact of life. When you get the skill, a whole new world opens up. So many new areas to explore, things to collect, and monsters to blast into oblivion. It's so cathartic to go back to monsters that were giving you a hard time and sending them straight to their maker with endless amounts of bullets and missiles. Only if I could do that to certain government institutions. For me, X is what I wanted out of an RPG. It's sci-fi, there's a fun world to explore, plenty of monsters to destroy, and giant robots.
What more could a guy ask for?
There are flaws I can nitpick, like yeah, the game takes forever to start, yeah, the models can look awkward at times, especially on the Wii U, but whatever issues I do have with the game are peanuts compared to how much fun I had with the title. As mentioned, I cleared X twice on the Wii U, which is more than I can say for a lot of modern games. Xenoblade Chronicles X is the Xenoblade series at its best. And for me, it's not only the best game of the series, but one of my all-time favorite games, period. So that's my look at the Xenoblade series. Worst to best finished, and I hope you enjoyed it. I do give the series a little bit of flack from time to time, but it's all in good fun. I really do enjoy the series. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't have cleared every single game in the series and wasted a lot of my time on it. But it was time I enjoyed, so it really wasn't a waste, so I don't know why I said that. I'm just kind of rambling right now. I do think these are some of the best games you could play. Definitely some of the best bang for your buck. And if they look cool, try them out. Monolith is one of the most consistent developers around, especially at Nintendo, so I'm always going to be excited about what games they're making next. So all we gotta do is wait, and hopefully by that time when that game comes out, I will have a Nintendo Switch too, because those things are kind of hard to find in Japan. So yeah, let's just end the video there. So Xenoblade Chronicles, have you played the game? Which is your favorite of the series? Let me know down there in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so for notifications on future videos. Sorry for the lack of uploads recently. I've been kind of dealing with some mental health issues, but we're dealing with that like an adult. And we're back on it, we're back on the grind making some videos, and yeah, I hope you're along for the ride for our future content. So, again, we'll leave it at that. This has been Z-Mangs signing out. We'll see you in the next video. Later, everybody. Take care.